There comes a moment in every life when silence speaks louder than applause, when the absence of recognition whispers a deeper question. What do you truly believe you're worth? Not what you say, not what you post, but what you carry quietly in the deepest room of your soul, when no one's looking and no one's clapping. The world doesn't see us as we are. It sees us as we see ourselves. It listens to how we walk, not how we talk. And it mirrors back the value we silently place upon our own lives. You can dress up confidence. You can speak success into a microphone. But life is not fooled. It listens for something deeper, the echo of belief behind your eyes. What price have you placed on your time, your energy, your peace? Do you trade your brilliance for crumbs because someone once told you that's all you deserved? Or worse, did no one tell you anything, and you quietly assumed your worth was small? It's a quiet truth, but a heavy one. We don't get what we're capable of. We get what we're willing to receive. And what we're willing to receive is shaped entirely by what we believe we're worthy of. Have you ever noticed how some people carry themselves like they belong in every room they enter? Not with arrogance, but with calm certainty, as if their worth is not up for debate. That's not ego, that's belief. And belief is everything. If you see yourself as disposable, the world will treat you like a spare part. If you see yourself as valuable, the world may resist at first, but eventually, it will adjust. Slowly, awkwardly, reluctantly, it will adjust. Because the world is reactive, not proactive. It follows your lead. So I ask you gently, what do you believe you're worth? Don't answer quickly. Let it settle. Let it rise up from the quiet. Because if you believe you're only worthy when others approve, your value will rise and fall with every passing opinion. If you believe you're only valuable when you're productive, you'll confuse exhaustion with achievement. But if you begin to believe that your worth is inherent, not earned, not borrowed, not conditional, everything begins to shift. Your boundaries grow roots. Your no gains dignity. Your yes becomes sacred. You stop apologizing for existing. You stop chasing people who never learned how to see. And instead, you start to receive opportunities, respect, peace. Because the world sees you start treating yourself like something rare, and it listens. You teach the world how to treat you by the way you treat yourself, not with grand declarations, but with the quiet daily choices, with how you spend your time, with what you tolerate, with what you demand, not from others but from the mirror. So if you've been overlooked, underpaid, unseen, ask yourself, is the world blind, or are you whispering your worth too softly for it to hear? Because you're not paid in money alone, you're paid in respect, in love, in peace of mind, and every currency of life follows the same law. The world will only pay you what you believe you're worth. So raise the price, not out of pride, but out of quiet, knowing truth. Raise the price in how you speak to yourself. Raise it in the relationships you accept. Raise it in the jobs you stay in, and the places you plant your roots. Because every time you settle, you reinforce a lie. And every time you rise, you remind yourself, and the world, that you were never meant to live discounted. You are not a bargain bin soul. And when you start to believe that, the world will too. The world reflects not who you are, but who you believe you are. It's a quiet truth, almost too simple to be taken seriously. The world does not respond to your reality. It responds to your belief about your reality. You could be brilliant, kind, deeply capable, and still be overlooked. Why? Because it's not enough to be something. You must believe you are, and you must live as if you are, without apology, without waiting for permission. The mirror you carry inside you, that's the one life listens to. Have you ever met someone who wasn't the smartest in the room or the most talented, and yet doors opened for them? People listened. Opportunities appeared. There was something about how they carried themselves, wasn't there? That subtle gravity, the quiet authority of self-belief. And have you noticed how others, perhaps even more gifted, faded into the background, shrinking beneath the weight of doubt, hiding their value behind hesitation? The truth is, the world is too distracted, too noisy, too fast to stop and discover your worth. It waits for a signal, your signal, and that signal is broadcast in every gesture, every choice, every conversation. When you believe you're small, the world treats you like background noise. When you believe you're worthy, the world starts to lean in slowly at first, then all at once, because belief isn't loud. It doesn't need to prove itself. It simply is. Think of a lighthouse. It doesn't chase ships. It doesn't scream over storms. It just stands there, shining, certain of its place, its purpose. That's what belief looks like. It's the quiet conviction that you belong, that you matter, and that you're no longer available for shrinking. So the question is, what do you believe about yourself? Not the version you present to the world, but the quiet belief behind closed doors, that hidden sentence you carry. I'm not enough. I'll never be noticed. Who am I to ask for more? These are not harmless thoughts. They are scripts, and you're living them out. When you shift your belief, even slightly, you begin to act differently. You speak up in rooms where you used to stay silent. You say no where you once would have folded. You walk straighter. You look people in the eye, and the world, startled at first, begins to recalibrate. Belief is magnetic. You don't have to shout. You just have to stop whispering your worth. It's not arrogance. It's alignment. It's living in harmony with the truth of who you are, not the lie you've been told or sold. So ask yourself, what would change if I believed I was enough? What would I dare to ask for? Who would I stop chasing? What spaces would I finally walk away from? The world cannot give you what you won't allow yourself to receive, and it cannot reflect a version of you that you haven't yet chosen to embody. So stand up, even if your knees tremble. Walk as if you belong, speak as if your voice matters, and live as if your life was always meant to be heard, seen, and honored. Because it was, but the world won't believe it. Until you don't get what you deserve, you get what you're willing to receive. There's a quiet frustration that lives inside many of us, the kind that doesn't yell but simmers. It's the feeling of doing everything right, of being good, kind, hard-working, and still watching others pass us by. The sense that somehow life owes us more than it's giving. But here's a gentle truth most people never hear. Life doesn't pay in fairness. It pays in permission. You don't get what you deserve. You get what you're willing to receive. Deserving is passive. It waits. It hopes. It believes the world is watching and keeping score. But receiving is active. It requires that you show up open, that you stop pushing away what you secretly long for. And so the question is not, do I deserve more? The question is, am I willing to receive more? You might not even realize you're blocking it. You say you want love, but do you believe you're lovable? You say you want success, but deep down do you feel like an imposter? You want abundance, but are you quietly more comfortable in struggle? Because it's familiar. The heart can long for something that the mind quietly rejects, and life listens not to your hopes, but to your readiness. Think of rain falling on two fields. One has been tilled, opened, prepared. The other is hard, untouched, closed off. Same rain, different result. The different one was willing to receive. That's how life works. Opportunities, love, joy, they don't always arrive as grand announcements. Sometimes they whisper, sometimes they knock one. And if you don't believe you're allowed to open the door, they pass by, not because you're unworthy, but because you never said yes. So what does it mean to receive? It means allowing yourself to be seen, really seen, even when it feels vulnerable. It means honoring your needs, instead of hiding them. It means choosing the better option, not the familiar pain. It means letting in praise instead of deflecting it with self-deprecation. It means letting go of the belief that sacrifice is your only virtue. Receiving is not selfish. It's not greedy. It's not weak. It's simply the act of saying, I'm open, I'm ready, I will not argue against my own blessings anymore. There's a reason some people never ask for help, never raise their hand, never step forward, because they've tied their worth to suffering. They've been taught that struggle is noble, and ease is suspicious. But there is no prize for withholding joy from yourself. There is no badge for living below your potential. Receiving is not about entitlement. It's about alignment. It's about removing the barriers inside you that say not yet, not me, not this. What if you stopped waiting to deserve it and just started allowing it? What if the things you've been praying for are already at the door, waiting for you to believe you can answer? Because here's the truth. Life is always trying to give, but it cannot force its gifts on a closed heart. So open slowly, if you must, but open. Say yes to the compliment. Say yes to the opportunity. Say yes to your own voice. Stop asking if you've earned it. Start asking if you're ready for it. Because the moment you stop trying to deserve it, you begin to receive it. Your self-worth sets the tone for every relationship, decision, and opportunity in your life. Some people search their entire lives for better circumstances, a better partner, a better career, a better path, but few ever stop to ask, what if the outer world isn't the starting point? What if it's just an echo of how I see myself? Every relationship you attract, every decision you make, every opportunity you say yes or no to, they all trace back to one quiet source, your self-worth. Not your self-esteem, which can be dressed up and displayed, but your self-worth, the deep, often invisible sense of what you truly believe you deserve. It's the thermostat of your life. And like any thermostat, it doesn't just reflect the temperature, it regulates it. You may rise temporarily, you may stumble into love, into success, into abundance, but if your self-worth doesn't match the moment, you'll sabotage it. You'll find a way to shrink it, question it, or leave it. Not because you didn't want it, but because, deep down, you didn't feel aligned with it. We never exceed the value we place on ourselves for very long. So what does low self-worth look like? It looks like saying yes when you mean no. It looks like staying where you're not respected. It looks like over-explaining, over-apologizing, over-giving. It looks like settling, not because there are no other options, but because you've convinced yourself there aren't. It's subtle, it's quiet, but it's powerful. And until it's healed, you'll keep choosing from it. In who you love, in what you tolerate, in how much of your light you allow to shine. Because here's the truth. You will only allow yourself to receive what your self-worth permits. Think of a garden. If the soil is depleted, the healthiest seed won't thrive. It's not the seed's fault, it's the environment it was planted in. Your self-worth is that soil. And everything you try to grow in your life, love, peace, ambition, will be shaped by it. So how do you begin to raise your self-worth? Not by shouting affirmations into the mirror, hoping they'll stick. Not by achieving more, collecting praise, or proving your value. But by slowly, steadily, honoring yourself in the smallest of ways. By keeping your word to yourself. By choosing people who choose you back. By resting when you're tired, not when you've earned it. By asking in every decision, does this reflect someone who values who they are? Because self-worth isn't loud, it doesn't need to prove. It simply sets the tone, and lets everything else tune itself accordingly. And over time, that tone becomes unmistakable. People begin to treat you differently, not because they've changed, but because you have, because you now walk into rooms with a quiet clarity. I know what I bring. I don't beg to be chosen. I am the standard now. It's not arrogance, it's integrity, the kind that says I won't trade my peace to be accepted. I won't shrink myself to fit your comfort. I won't abandon myself to be loved. When your self-worth rises, everything else follows. You make clearer decisions. You attract more aligned people. You stop chasing crumbs, because you finally remember you're the feast. So if life has been feeling heavy, if your relationships keep hurting, if your opportunities feel out of reach, don't just ask what's wrong with the world. Ask what you've been believing about yourself, because nothing in your life can rise higher than the value you place on your own being. Change that, and you change everything. People follow the example you set in how you treat yourself. We teach the world how to treat us, not by what we demand, but by what we allow, not with loud declarations, but with quiet patterns, not with words, but with how we treat ourselves when no one is watching. People are perceptive. They observe the unspoken. They notice how you speak to yourself, how you set limits or don't, how you care for your body, your time, your dreams, and they calibrate their behavior to match your example. If you don't respect your own voice, Don't be surprised when others talk over it. If you constantly put yourself last, others will assume that's where you belong. If you dismiss your worth, the world will simply nod in agreement. It's not cruelty, it's conditioning. You've shown them what's acceptable, and they've followed suit. This is one of the hardest truths to accept, not because it's harsh, but because it places the power back in our hands. We are not just participants in our lives, we are architects, and what we tolerate becomes the blueprint. So look closely. Do you interrupt your own rest because you feel guilty for taking it? Do you brush off compliments because they make you uncomfortable? Do you remain silent to keep the peace, even when your heart is screaming? Each of these moments sends a message, not only to others, but to yourself, and over time they add up, until suddenly, you find yourself in relationships that mirror your self-neglect, jobs that reflect your self-doubt, a life that echoes the parts of you you've ignored. But here's the beautiful part. If you can teach people how to overlook you, you can also teach them how to honor you. It starts by returning home to your own dignity. You set the tone with how you talk to yourself in the mirror, with how you protect your time from constant interruption, with how you refuse to laugh at jokes that belittle you, with how you no longer explain your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding it. You begin to model a new way of being, one that says, I am not here to be tolerated, I am here to be treasured, not because you've done something extraordinary, but because you exist, because you are enough, right now, as you are. It doesn't happen overnight. At first, people will resist. They'll question the new tone. They'll test your boundaries. They'll call you changed, perhaps even selfish. But what they're really noticing is that you've raised the standard, and they're trying to decide if they can meet it. Some will, some won't. That's not your burden. Your only job is to stay rooted in your example, because when you begin to treat yourself with reverence, not just care but reverence, you shift the entire ecosystem around you. Suddenly, you're not begging for love, you're attracting it. You're not proving your worth, you're embodying it. And people who once overlooked you begin to notice, not because you became louder, but because you became clearer. You became the mirror they didn't know they needed. So if you want better treatment, better relationships, better energy around you, don't look outward first. Look at how you treat yourself. That's the place where everything begins to change. And as you elevate that relationship, others will either rise to meet you or fall away. Both are answers, because the most powerful boundary you will ever set is the way you love yourself. The value of your life is measured by how sacred you hold your time, energy, and peace. There is a currency far more valuable than money, one that cannot be earned again, once spent. It's not measured in digits or possessions, but in moments, in focus, in how deeply we are able to breathe without urgency. That currency is your time, your energy, and your peace, and how you protect these is the clearest reflection of how much you value your life. The world will always ask for more of your attention, more of your time, more of your yes. But the question is, what do you say yes to? And more importantly, why? Are you giving yourself away out of obligation? Are you overextending yourself to prove you're good, worthy, needed? Because every time you say yes to something misaligned, you say no to something sacred. Your rest, your clarity, your growth, yourself. You were not born to be constantly accessible. You are not a resource to be drained. You are a living being, with a soul that needs silence, a heart that needs margin, and a mind that needs peace to think clearly and dream freely. But here's the hard part. The world rarely gives us space unless we claim it. It will applaud your burnout. It will reward your busyness. It will admire your sacrifice, even as it quietly erodes your spirit. That's why you must be the one to draw the line, to decide what is enough, to step back and say, my time is not cheap, my energy is not for sale, my peace is not negotiable. And that's not selfish, that's sacred. Have you ever met someone who radiates calm, not because their life is easy, but because they guard their inner world like a sanctuary? They say no without apology. They move with intention. They aren't rushed, because they know speed is not the same as progress. That kind of presence doesn't happen by accident. It is built slowly, through hundreds of small decisions that say, I matter, my life matters, and I will not live in constant reaction to everyone else's expectations. So take inventory. Where does your time lead? What drains your energy, quietly, but relentlessly? What robs you of peace, even while pretending to offer reward? It could be a toxic relationship. It could be overconsumption of news, of opinions. It could be the addiction to productivity, where your value is tied to how much you can achieve in a day. Whatever it is, it's costing you. And once you realize how much of your life you're trading away for approval, for comfort, for fear of being disliked, you begin to understand that protecting your peace is not a luxury, it is survival, it is wisdom, it is love. Because when your mind is calm, your decisions become clearer. When your energy is restored, your presence deepens. When your time is used with care, your life begins to feel like yours again. And that's when everything starts to shift. You become magnetic, focused, aligned, not because you added more, but because you subtracted what was stealing from your soul. So let this be your quiet revolution. Turn down the noise, walk slower, choose fewer things, but with greater heart, and hold your time, your energy and your peace as sacred, because how you treat them is how you treat your life, and your life is far too precious to waste on anything that doesn't nourish who you're becoming. Every boundary you create is a quiet declaration of self-respect. Boundaries are not walls, they are not punishment, they are not lines drawn in anger. They are soft, steady truths, whispered first within, then spoken calmly into the world. Every boundary you create is not about keeping others out, it's about keeping yourself intact, whole, and more than anything, each boundary is a quiet declaration. I respect myself enough to protect what matters. We live in a world that often misunderstands boundaries. People mistake them for rejection, coldness, or ego. But boundaries are not about pushing people away. They're about deciding what you will no longer abandon within yourself just to make others comfortable. Because here's a truth that takes time to learn. You cannot build a life of peace if you are always open to chaos. You cannot build a life of meaning if you allow yourself to be drained by every demand, every request, every noise. Boundaries are not selfish. They are clarity, and clarity is kindness to yourself and to others. Think of a river. Without the banks to hold it, it spills everywhere. It loses its power, its flow, its direction. But when there are edges, not restrictions but form, the river flows strong, purposeful, free within its shape. That's what boundaries do for your life. They hold the shape of your values. They protect the flow of your energy. They guide your time, your focus, your emotional availability. Without them, you become scattered, pulled in directions that dilute your essence. But with them, you become intentional, whole. So ask yourself gently, where have I allowed my silence to be mistaken for agreement? Where have I tolerated what I deeply knew wasn't right for me? Where have I said yes, while my heart quietly whispered no? We don't lose ourselves all at once. We lose ourselves in small moments of self-betrayal, a conversation we didn't want to have, an apology we didn't owe, a commitment that left us empty. But here's the power no one can take from you, the power to choose again, to begin placing quiet lines, not out of anger, but from self-awareness, to speak softly, but clearly. This is okay, this is not. Boundaries don't need justification. You don't owe anyone a thesis on why you protect your peace. A simple no thank you is enough. A gentle, that doesn't work for me is enough. A steady exit from the things that drain you is enough. Because what you're really doing is telling yourself, I am worthy of a life that feels safe. I am allowed to be unavailable to what hurts me. I choose to stop betraying myself just to be accepted. And when you do that, something beautiful happens. You begin to attract people who understand, who respect, who mirror that same quiet self-regard. You stop feeling guilty for needing space. You stop explaining your worth, and you begin to experience the peace that comes when your life reflects your values, not your fear. So let this be your gentle reminder. Every time you set a boundary, you are not being mean, you are being clear. You are not pushing people away, you are pulling yourself closer. And every boundary you create is not a rejection of others, it is a profound act of self-respect.